but once again, Zoom made me update the app before coming on here, and so it looks a little bit different. It's formatted differently. We are live. I
Really?
see it now, but the notice is not how it usually looks. So there you go, a new look for Zoom, I suppose. But here we are. This is Nuance, and I am Mike Scala. Of course, this is a special election day / night edition. I'm joined, as always, by Jay Carter, also known as Timid, the hip hop artist in the chair of BLM Tokyo. What's going on, Jay?
Yeah, it's gonna be a short one today. I'm actually jetting out directly from here to the airport, heading to the States for the next month. So,
Nice.
by the time I land, I guess we'll know who the new president-elect is gonna be.
I don't think we will.
Well, my total trip is about 23 hours.
Okay, I think we may be in for a ride here. I mean, we'll
Yeah?
see how close we end up by the end of tonight with the in-person vote, right? But states like Pennsylvania don't count their mailed-in ballots until after the fact, and so if
Right,
it's
right.
within the margin, which it looks like according to the polls, it will be pretty close. Then we may not know who's going to win for a week or more. You know?
Yeah, yeah. I think a lot of people are counting on tonight to kind of uh release that burden of the campaign, of the stress, of everything. It's like it's election day, it's the time, it's go time. But yeah, it might take a few days or a week to count it, and then if it's contested, it might, you
Right.
know,
That's right.
go even further. I mean, what was
Imagine
it?
that. I mean, and that's the worst case scenario, right? The worst
Right,
case scenario is we're not going to know until December / January, which would be
right.
a nightmare if it's that close. But
Yeah.
let's hope not, right? Let's hope that at least tonight we get data that shows us with some degree of certainty what's going on. Although I'll say we do have to be careful about a candidate, and I mean across any level of government, not just at the presidential level, but any candidate declaring victory tonight when the votes are still outstanding, and later on, right, whoever has the lead could end up losing, because what ends up happening with that, as we've seen, is people start to think that there was cheating, there was fraud, they stole it, right? Because when a candidate announces that they won, their supporters will tend to believe them and start celebrating, and then it feels like it was taken away from them.
Right, absolutely. And we touched on that a little bit with the red mirage, the blue shift and the red mirage um point, whereas in the beginning it generally looks like the Republicans are winning because they're in the concentration is usually in smaller areas, and so they can count faster, and so they can turn in their results faster. So it looks like they're winning. And then when bigger places like in New York and like California, when those results are finished counting, then blue makes a massive gain,
Yeah.
and so you
Well,
can see the balance
those,
of it.
those particular states aren't even in question, right? I think you really have to
Yeah,
look at swing states and the counties that are being counted in the swing
right.
states, right? Because if they start, for example, with rural counties, well, that's going to look a lot more red. Also, I think as we mentioned last week, historically speaking, the absentee vote, the mail-in vote, tends to
Right.
be more Democratic, and so on election night, you do tend to have more Republican leads because the mail-in vote that comes in later is disproportionately Democratic. Not as many of them are voting on election day, although that was especially true during COVID. Now that we're kind of out of that, things may normalize a little bit. And even I've seen Republicans making the effort to get more of that early vote out than ever before, right? It's kind of taboo amongst Republicans. It was always, nope, we're traditional, we're conservatives, we only vote on election day in person, that's it. And this year you are starting to see Republicans vote early. A new term that's being thrown around now is cannibalization, right? To what extent have the Republicans cannibalized their election day vote? Because
Mm.
you expect to see, like we said, Republicans do very well on election day. But if the people who are going to vote on election day all voted early, well, then their turnout today won't be as high as normal. And so these are all factors that need to be looked at.
Absolutely, absolutely. Um, well, I hope we have some indication, um, you know, uh, sooner rather than later, because
Right.
I know people are worn out.
Yeah. Yeah.
People are absolutely worn out. So yeah,
No, it's true. We have to see. I think last I saw this, I was out all day today, so this might have changed. I think as of yesterday, they had said that Pennsylvania had twice as many Democrats voting as Republicans in the early vote. But of course, they're not able to tally up the votes yet. So they're just looking at the party that the voter is registered to. So they
Right.
could be a registered Democrat and vote Republican or vice versa or whatever. But at least on paper, that seems to be a good sign for the Democrats. But again, it also depends on how many Republicans now are going to come out on election day, right? And so
All right.
that's why
Absolutely.
I'm saying, did Republicans cannibalize their own vote? If you see a lower turnout of Republicans today than usual because they all voted early, well, then that big Democratic lead that you saw becomes more significant in the early vote, right? So
Right.
it comes
Yeah.
down to what the election day turnout is. And that's the kind of thing that we'll be able to see tonight, right? We'll start looking at, okay, what is the election day in-person turnout? How did that end up? And then you can kind of compare it to historic patterns and what the outstanding mail vote is and so on and so forth. So clues, it's really like being a detective at this point. There's gonna be a lot of searching for clues as the night goes on, even if we don't have anything definitive quite yet.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I'm hoping for the best. You know, Republicans voting actually starts tomorrow. Just if you're listening,
Oh boy.
uh, I'm hoping for the best.
We don't
This
play
is
that.
very significant. This was even brought up. I did two classes yesterday. One I did a lecture for Temple, and then I did a lecture for the seniors center here yesterday. And one of the last questions, even though that wasn't the topic, was about the U.S. election, and they were, concerned and just kind of shocked at how it is this close. And they're seeing like, how, Trump seems like a joke, but like, how is it even possible that this is this close?
Can
Uh,
I say something that might be controversial, but I think you might agree with
all right.
as to why it's this close? And I don't think this is all her fault, but I think all things considered, Kamala is not the best general election candidate, or at least was not this cycle.
Well, that's I would want to clarify that. Um, I think qualifications wise, she's the best candidate. She's
Well, we say
having
be the best of all time, or just
best candidate right now,
okay. Yeah, I'm not
right?
doubting that. By the way, I'm not disputing that whatsoever.
Right. I just want to, yeah. Now her able to
Both.
speak,
Yeah.
her able to speak. I think she's had a trouble with it because, or part of it because she was just thrown immediately into the big game. Any candidate when they first get into this part of the campaign, they're going to have that trouble speaking on that national level and getting their talking points ready and their rhythm and their groove.
Yes.
And got 2 years to do it.
Yep.
You know,
Yep. And getting
she had to
comfortable,
do it immediately.
right? Getting comfortable being yourself while all of these crazy external factors are smacking
Right.
you constantly, right?
Yeah.
You can tell, you can almost read it on her when she's giving an answer. She's thinking about, well, this pollster told me this, and I got this pollster, this consultant said to be careful about this, and she's like,
Right.
she's like walking on like a minefield.
Right.
And she needed to just get comfortable processing all the information she's given,
Yeah.
acting accordingly, but also coming off as more natural or herself, not worried by it. And that, like you said, that comes with experience. That comes with 2 years on the campaign trail running for president.
Right.
She didn't get that, right? So
Right.
she was not seasoned in that way really whatsoever. And I think she did suffer because of that. We're going to talk about this video. I love the site Jubilee, or the YouTube channel. We're going to talk about something we saw on there. I love the feedback that voters are giving, because one of the things that you hear on there is that she has not been able to really express her positions. So
Right.
a lot of voters don't even know what her positions are. And that's kind of scary. You ask, why is it close? Because a lot of people say, well, we don't like Trump, but we don't know what Kamala stands for.
Well, and let's also be fair on that though. She's had her positions out there. People have to also go look for those.
Right? They've also changed, and not too
Sure.
long ago, a lot of them have changed. And the other thing I'll say is, you're right. You can go on her website and start looking things up, but they made a deliberate decision, and maybe partly because she wasn't so seasoned as a candidate, the campaign made a decision to make this a vibes election, right? That was kind of what was happening internally. They were saying, we don't want to make this about policy. We don't want this to be about issues. We want this to be about vibes. They're just kind of weird over there. We're like the cooler people over here. We got Beyonce, we got Eminem, they got Hulk Hogan and Kid Rock. That was really what they wanted to make it about. I think maybe there was some mileage in that, at least initially, but it creates a situation where people are like, well, wait a minute, we do care about the issues. what does she stand for? Aside from maybe like the top two or three that she'll keep bringing up. Like, for example,
Right.
she just gave a speech. I think it was the Houston speech where Beyonce opened for her. The entire
Right.
speech was on abortion, right? So, all right, it's an important issue, but if you're a voter out there and maybe you have issues that matter more to you, like let's say you're a steel worker in Western Pennsylvania or something like that, right? You want to know what is her policy on these issues, on economic issues, on jobs, job creation, job growth, all these different things that you're not really getting from the speeches, at least.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, you know, she's had a lot against her, but I think we've seen unprecedented support quickly, which is also a pretty good sign. So there's a lot on the shoulders. And you mentioned the Jubilee. Uh, I've been a long time viewer of the channel, and they've been doing this recently. They've been doing this like 20 versus 1 type of situation where they sit.
Surrounded.
I'm sorry?
Well, it's surrounded.
Surrounded, yeah. And so they've done it recently with a bunch of different people who sit down and they have a certain opinion, and then there's 20 people that may oppose or not completely disagree, and they come up and they can debate them one-on-one in a timed fashion. And so Pete Buttigieg was on there recently, and he was on there stumping for Kamala. Um, I think it was excellent. I think Buttigieg was excellent in the way that he handled it, his explanations, his engagement. It was a masterclass, in my opinion.
The fact that he also showed empathy, right? If they expressed an opinion that seemed maybe contrary to his position, he would look for the common ground. He would say, well, I understand where you're coming from. I get why you feel that way, but let me tell you my side of it. And he wasn't dismissive, right? He wasn't trying
Right.
to write them off as insignificant or not mattering or stupid or, beneath him.
Yeah.
He was kind of meeting them where they were at. I think that's a very effective tool, and it's disarming, right? Because
Yeah.
he's showing that he cares and he understands where they're coming from, and then
Right.
he's able and willing to engage with them, and also respond directly to the points that they made, and not just stick to his script, not stick to the talking points. And
Right. And there were a few that were kind of hostile. And he still maintained his composure. He still was very respectful. And he still communicated his message quite clearly. So I thought it was great. I thought it was
yeah,
amazing.
but you noticed one of those voters said, "Why is it that you're able to articulate Kamala's positions better than she is?" Again, that's the
Yes.
problem. You know,
And there were a lot of head nods when he said that. Like people
right?
seemed like,
And I'm just trying to be objective about what I see here. Of course, I voted for her, but even on the interviews that she gave, right, I was a little dumbfounded, to tell you the truth. These were not gotcha questions that she was asked. She was asked very basic questions that anyone should have seen coming from a mile away, right? We talked about at the debates, all the questions are known. Yeah, they could ask about the economy, immigration, abortion, so on and so forth. Well, when you're doing an interview with whether it's Fox News or CNN or ABC or NBC, any of these networks, you should have a pretty basic understanding of the kind of questions that are going to be asked of you.
right.
And why was it that she wasn't prepared to give cohesive answers to these questions? I didn't get that. You would think just like they sat her down for the debate and they did prep and said, these are the answers you're going to have to give. Why not do something similar for the interviews? Because I do think that she dropped the ball on several of them.
Well, I think Pete pointed out just like we did that she's under a tremendous amount of pressure at this point, and she just kind of was thrown into the mix of
Okay,
it. And
okay, but
like we gotta take that into account.
you're running for president, though. You can't make that as an excuse. I'm under a lot of
I
pressure.
know,
Your question about the economy. Come on.
I know. But I mean, it is a fair point though. When we just went over and highlighted it, there was a fair point. Yes, I would have liked to see more from her on that front, but she's playing catch up. I think after watching that, I think Pete should have been the one doing the training.
Right? Yeah, he should have been more involved in that for sure.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
every candidate needs to contact his office right now,
you
and
know, they ask her about her tax plan, and she's like, "That was the whole meme, right? Well, I grew up middle class," and she goes on to this 2 minute long word salad answer that doesn't even really directly answer the question. And you would think, I think she got a little bit better at that as time went on, because I think where did I see her? One of the speeches I saw, she was actually using more personal stories, not just about her own background, but you know how presidential candidates will do this, and it's effective. Like when you get asked about policy, instead of giving just a dry, wonky answer, you'll say, "Well, I
Right.
met Jim. He's a farmer in Michigan, and let me tell you what he's doing with his farm. And this is how I want to fix it." She started doing more of that as time went on to become a little bit more relatable and make the issues seem more real.
Right.
So that she cares about them. That's important, right? Scott, I think when you're running for office and you get questions like this, you really have to answer them with two things in mind, right? One is you want to come off as relatable and human and compassionate and caring, right? That the problem really does matter to you. And on the other hand, you also want to show that you have a grasp of the issue and you have a plan and you can articulate that plan concisely and clearly. And sometimes it's not easy to juggle the two tasks because if you try to sound too compassionate, you might just end up telling too many stories and talking too long without getting to the policy, or vice versa, right? So it's not an easy thing to do necessarily, but something you can train yourself to do. And I think maybe more prep should have been put into that for her. As we said, she did get better at it as time went on,
Yeah.
but she got better at it like yesterday. It was kind of late in the game, and that was kind of the problem.
Yeah.
So I think that all goes back to why is it so close? This is part of the reason why, in my opinion.
I think I think that is a contributing factor. I think unlike Trump, she's going to be able to acclimate to the position. When if she wins.
Yeah, I've got no doubt that she will govern well. She knows what
Right.
she, to your point earlier, she's got the experience, one of the
Right.
most experienced candidates we've seen. I completely agree with that. But it's a matter of campaigning, right? To win, right? To be able to govern and do the things that we want done, you have to win the campaign and get into office. And that means you got to be a good candidate. The calculation that the Democratic Party made was that she would be a better candidate than Biden. We'll never know, right? People can say all they want. She definitely outpulled what Biden would have done. No one will know, right? Anyone who tells you that they
Right.
don't know is lying or mistaken. There's just no way we'll ever know how he would have done if he remained on the ballot. Would he have had a better second debate if there was one, right? Because Trump might have been more willing to debate him a second time.
Right.
A number of things could have happened, but we are where we are now, right?
Right.
What about her VP pick? I think Walz also could have done better at certain points.
Sure.
Not have the greatest debate against Vance, let's be honest, right? He came
Right.
off well in some of the speeches he gave. Again, personable, relatable. He's a coach. We like him. Okay. But he seemed a little bit light on the policy side in some cases. I did see, and I don't know if it was Jubilee, it might have been one of the other ones that popped up as a suggested video. I saw a video of him where he was going through the gauntlet with undecided voters and trying to convince them why their ticket is better. And he was pretty effective there, but they were asking mostly about farming and rural issues. And I guess he deals with that a lot in Minnesota. So he was able to really hammer in on that and show that he knows his stuff when it comes to agriculture. So they were impressed by that. In fact, they said they were going to vote for Harris Walz now because of his mastery of farming, basically, but also because he just came off as, again, like I was saying before, he knows his stuff, but also personable and showing empathy to what they're going through, right? If you're a Democrat now, I think that is a little bit difficult also because there is a Democratic administration. And so Kamala found herself in this trap as well. When asked, for example, what would you do differently from the current administration? You should have a good answer to that, but it's hard to dance around that question because it's kind of a trap. That kind of is a gotcha question, right? In the sense of, well, if you say all the things you would do differently, then it's like, well, I guess you're admitting that your administration was a failure then. But if you say anything differently, it's like, well, you don't even grow. You just can be the same as Biden. And then some people, let's be honest, a lot of people blame the current administration for inflation and for, all these issues going on now, even though it really wasn't their fault. But people, now I had this conversation earlier. This is, obviously election day here locally as well. And I was going around to all the schools talking to people in Queens, South Queens here. Someone was bringing that point up. Well, a lot of people are voting for Trump because the grocery prices were lower when he was president. I said, but has anyone ever even tried to articulate what he did to bring prices down? Like if they're saying that they were lower, yeah, but did he ever lower them? Or did he inherit the problems economy and the prices actually still go up while he was president?
Right.
And then people don't really have an answer for that. They're like, oh, but they just remember prices were lower. And so in their head, they're like, well, let's go back to that time. Let's like rewind the clock. But they're not thinking it through logically in terms of what was actually done in your mind. What did he do to lower the cost of groceries? And I guess then what would he do again? So if you think he did something back then that was so wonderful, is he going to do that again? All right, but what was that? Because from my point of view, nothing was done by that administration to lower the cost. From my point of view, everything went up because of COVID and the economy blowing up at that time. And in fact, it was the previous administration that mishandled the pandemic, which honestly is probably why he lost re-election in the first place. So I really don't know where people are coming from. But then again, I understand it. Not if you think of it through logically. It doesn't really make sense if you try to apply logic to it. But if you strictly think of it from the emotional point of view of, well, we're nostalgic for those days, I kind of get that. But I don't think that's a good reason to vote because you're not accounting for policy by doing that, right? You're not accounting what is going to be done to lower the price. Because if you really want prices to be lower, like 2019 levels low, you're probably going to have a recession or a depression for that to happen, right? You don't want that to be the case. And so, let's be honest, we're in the position we're in because of what happened with COVID. I don't know. I get people are frustrated with what's going on now. We're all frustrated, but people also kind of have rose-colored glasses, I think, when looking back at the previous administration, as if they did something to help. Just because things were better then, because COVID hadn't made them worse yet, doesn't mean they were doing something that, you know what I mean? So what would they do now to make things any better?
Yeah, and I've been watching a lot of videos recently with that, and people are bringing that up to some Trump supporters, and they just don't really have an answer for that. And again, this it's not a gotcha question. It's what is it that you're pointing to? If there's something that you liked, if there's some policy or anything, like point to it. What was it? And a lot of people don't have an answer for that. And so.
Yeah.
It's more ideological at this point. They're just following an ideology, even if there's no substance to it. They're just following that along, and that makes it even more dangerous because they can believe in that versus anything of substance. They're going to look at that versus anything material. That's how they can overlook facts
Right,
and
but
think,
it's even more than an ideological divide. I think what makes it even more scary is it's like a brand of politic divide, right? It isn't necessarily that people voting that way are all traditional conservatives with certain values. I mean, of course, you have your group that is like that, right? Like maybe religious folks who feel a certain way about a Christian or whatever. But I think the appeal, for the most part, on that side isn't even really about policy or about ideology. It's just about the style, the brand, we want to burn the system down types. I think that appeals very heavily to conspiracy theory types and people like that, people
sure.
that the world is out to get them, right? It's us versus them. They, remember I said there is no they when it comes to that. They're doing this, they're doing that. These types who want to say they're destroying the world. I've got a funny, I know you got to balance, right? I got a funny anecdote from Howard Beach. All right. One of my longtime canvassers was knocking doors for our local assembly member here in Howard Beach. And this is the beautiful part of Howard Beach, New Howard, big houses, right? Someone called them mini mansions, right? Well over $1 million, these houses. So this woman, I guess, at the doors said she's not voting for the Democrats because they destroyed the neighborhood. And now this guy, this canvasser of ours, formerly homeless, right? I bring this up for a reason. He spent 10 years homeless in New York City, got his life back together. He's doing very well now. But obviously he has that experience of living on the street quite literally, right? So he's had a rough time. He's now in this part of Howard Beach that's, like I said, beautiful, right? Beautiful homes. Everything is pristine looking, mini mansions, right? And
I need to know what he's doing.
this lady at the door, say what?
I need to know what he's
No,
doing.
no, no, no. He doesn't live there. What I'm saying is,
Oh, okay.
he's canvassing the neighborhood for our candidate. So, but he has that perspective. So he's at the door, and this lady who lives there is telling him the neighborhood was trashed. It went to garbage by the Democrats. And I guess he got a little frustrated, but basically he started looking around, and he was like, "Yeah, you're so right." And he walked off because, like, what are you talking about? Like, you have to count your blessings. Obviously there are problems that we were all concerned about, and we shouldn't dismiss them. But this guy was literally homeless on the streets for 10 years. He knows what it's like when things are bad, and it's really not that bad out here. You know what I mean? Like, let's keep our perspective and let's be grateful for what we do have. Let's not be hyper dramatic. Everything went to trash. No, things are actually pretty good in spite of the problems that persist.
Absolutely. Well, I definitely have to run out. so I don't miss this plane. And listen, while I'm in the air, don't do no nonsense and screw this election up, please, people. Do not get the rubber chicken of the next 4 years.
That's right. I like
So,
that. And if you didn't vote tonight, you still have under 2 hours, but please get out. If you do not vote and you're eligible to vote, you get the rubber chicken of the week. Don't be that guy. Don't be that girl. Let's make our
all
voices.
right.
And the poll question of the week, by the way, before you sign off, or I guess you can sign off, I'll say it anyway. But the poll question of the week is, are you frustrated that the results of the elections don't always come in on election night?
Good poll question of the week. I'm gonna have to sign off.
Yes, don't miss your ride. And
All right, take care.
as always, we've got work to do. We'll catch you next time. Thank you all.
All right.